I appreciate you clicking on this video. So let me do an example similar to the one that you have for your homework, where we want to identify the input and output values to this function g using the input and output values of f. Now, because we're doing multiple transformations, we want to begin with the transformations inside the parentheses, which are affecting the input values. Again, inside inputs, okay? This is why they're called input, because again, they're inside the parentheses. So what are we doing here? The key thing when we are affecting the input values is that we're doing the opposite operation as indicated. So here we are not going to multiply by -5. We're going to divide our x values, our input values. Let me get the green value. We're going to divide these input values, these x values, by -5. And that's going to do two things. The first thing, because we're dividing, and this number is a number bigger than 1, this is going to create a horizontal shrink of this point. So, for example, this point has an x value of 30. So it's all the way over here, okay? 30 and 72. So 30. By putting this -5, it's going to result, well, just a 5. Let me ignore the negative sign right now. Just a 5. What this 5 is going to do, it's going to shrink the graph and make it 5 times closer to the y-axis. So it doesn't make it 5 times further, all right? It does the opposite and makes it 5 times closer to the y-axis. So hence why we're dividing by that value. The negative sign is simply going to flip it across the x-axis, the y-axis, and do a horizontal flip. So we'll be eventually over here as well, but still closer again. If we look at the negative sign first, it flips it. So instead of being over here at 30, it'll be a -30. And the 5 will simply bring it 5 times closer to the y-axis. So not so far away from the y-axis. And what was the, what's the, not the -2, the +4. Well, the +4 is going to move everything in a negative direction. So we're going to then move it in that direction. So if I do that to this number right here, I'm going to do the exact same to all the other values. So make everything 5 times closer and then shift everything to the left 4. So if I make 30 5 times closer to the y-axis, well, -5, so -30, 5 times closer to the y-axis, now move it to -6. But then having to move it 4 units to the right is going to move it to -10. And well, that would be the value right here, -10. And I'm going to do the exact same thing again to all of them. So let me just write it in one single step over here, because the operations are going to change. And again, before I move on, look, again, I'm just simply doing the opposite. So instead of multiplying, I divide. And instead of adding, I subtract. So I'm going to do all of that to the input values. So starting off with 30, again, like I mentioned, that's going to be -10. Moving on with 25, I'm sorry, with the second input value, 25. 25 divided by a -5, that's a -5 minus 4, that is -9. 0 divided by anything is still 0, and then -4 is -4. -15 divided by -5 is +3, minus 4 is -1. And then -20 divided by -5 is a +4, minus 4, that gives us 0. So there, we have the new input values for G, we have our input values for G, and now we can talk about the output values. Well, the output values are affected by the outside transformation. So output values are affected by the outside transformation. So if we look at those values, that these two values right there. So if we ignore all of this here, if we ignore all of this and just treat this as f of x, we have literally the notation of -1/8 times f of x minus 2. So that's exactly what we're going to do to these output values. We're going to multiply all of these f of x values, which is this right here, by this number first, because again, multiplication takes priority in the order of operations, and then we're going to subtract them by 2. And that's going to create the transformation for the input value to give us the table for G. So let me write that down. What we're doing again, we're getting the y values, the output values, multiplying those by negative 1 over 8, and then subtracting 2. So 72 times negative is negative, and 72 times 1 over 8, that's 9. And 9 minus 2 is 11. Negative 9 minus 2 is negative 11, I'm sorry, negative 11. So negative 11 again, because the second number is the same. And now negative 24. Negative times negative is positive. And 24 times 1 over 8, that's 3. So 3 minus 2 is 1. Now negative 48, negative and a negative is positive. And 48 times 1 over 8, that is 6. And 6 minus 2 is 4. And now negative 40. Negative 40 times negative, that's positive, and 40 times 1 over 8, that's 5. And 5 minus 2 is 3. So those are the new inputs, or those are the input, not new, but those are the inputs and outputs of the function g when we transform f by dilating f 5 units by a factor of 1 over 5 and reflecting it, and also shifting it to the left. And by dilating the y values, the vertical dilation of negative 1 over 8, along with the vertical transformation, the vertical reflection, and shifting it down 2 units. So there you have it. Hopefully this video was very helpful, and I appreciate you watching.